So today we're finally gonna talk about it. All right, so if you've been following along, my wife and I moved to Australia like 2 months ago, and I documented that process of really just my experience and what it was like to move from America to here. Now I'm living in this series of videos that I'm making about living in Australia. It's been a crazy few months, been a crazy month, and during this time, I have been thinking about how to continue on this whole series. But before I did, I felt like there's been this question that I haven't answered, and I've had it asked me several times. Literally, I'm not kidding. There was someone in my YouTube comments. I don't know who you are. Well, I actually do know. But one of you literally just asked me why. Like, it was just, you didn't ask me like, why did you move to Australia? You just typed in the, you typed in the comment section just why. So I figured it'd be good to answer the question of why I moved to Australia. So before I answer, I just wanted to give you a quick update. It's been 2 weeks since I posted my last video. And the reason is because Grace and I got married almost 2 years ago, 2 years this October. And before we were married, we obviously were dating. And that entire time of dating and marriage, I never met her brother. I met one of her brothers earlier this year, and I still hadn't met one of her brothers. He lives in Adelaide. So this past week we took the 16-hour, well, is it 14 hour? It ends up being over 16 hours from Sydney all the way to Adelaide. Road tripping in America and Australia are so different. I think maybe I'll make a video. If you want to see me make a video about road tripping in Australia versus road tripping in America, I think that'd be a cool idea. Then just comment below if you want to see that. But yeah, I went on this trip and got to hang out with and meet Grace's brother, which was really cool. Jonah, if you're watching, thanks for having me over at your house. Something happened on that trip that is pretty monumental for my YouTube channel because I've made a video about this in the past. If you haven't watched my video about me looking for a kangaroo and talking about how I've never seen one, that's right here. But I saw my first kangaroo. I lived here for 2 months and still hadn't seen a kangaroo. So we go out and we are driving up into the hills in Adelaide, and he's just driving us around and he's determined to find a kangaroo. We're like determined to go find a kangaroo so I can finally see one. I live in Sydney, so it's pretty impossible to see a kangaroo, I think, in Sydney, maybe on the outskirts. If you're from Sydney, where's the spot to see a kangaroo? Let me know. Yeah, in Adelaide, we were driving up the hills, went down this really like gravelly road. It was so beautiful, like so green. And we go down this path and we look over, and I'm not kidding, it was like Jonah had seen them already, but I hadn't seen them yet. But these like almost camouflaged into the background gray kangaroos were just hanging out there. I'm gonna put that video right here. This is the first time I ever saw a kangaroo. This and my second, because there's 2 of them right there. Yeah, it was amazing, and we just kind of drove and got to see them. If you're Australian and you don't understand why it's like a significant thing for us, obviously it's because we've never seen one, but it's also just like, how often do you see a 2-legged animal that stands and kind of leans on its back tail like that? It's just such a unique animal for us. Like in North America, we have nothing like that at all. Anyway, so I got to see them. But on the way back on our trip, we were driving out like early in the morning, and my wife Grace was driving, and this right here happened. I'm gonna put a video of my 3rd sighting of a kangaroo. Yeah, so that's pretty scary that we were driving. It was like 6 a.m. The sun's coming over the horizon, and we're driving through really thin, really fast roads to Sydney. Out of the corner of her eye, she sees something hopping, and she sees a kangaroo coming across, slows down from 110 kilometers per hour to I think like 40, and basically just saved us from hitting a kangaroo. And that was my 3rd time seeing a kangaroo, so that was pretty scary. I was actually asleep in the passenger side, and I was fully like knocked out with I had a beanie over my eyes, and I just feel the car like come to a dead slam, and I look up and there's a kangaroo hopping in front of me. And yeah, so luckily that wasn't my first time seeing one, but also luckily my 3rd one wasn't one that I hit. I've been getting a lot of questions about us moving to Australia and why we did. And before I tell you why I did, I think there's a lot of reasons why someone would move to Sydney and why someone would move to Australia in general. A lot of people have been kind of saying what they think is the reason why we moved. Like, are we moving because we wanted to get out of America? Are we moving just to enjoy Sydney? Are we moving here to get like free health insurance? Yeah, I think there's just a lot of curiosity around this question. So yeah, which one of these is that answer? And honestly, it's none of these. When Grace and I got married, we knew that it was gonna be pretty decisive pretty quick. Like we were gonna need to make some decisions about where we needed to be. You know, do we wanna live in Australia or America? So we were making those decisions right before I asked Grace to marry me. I actually sold my car, sold it to buy her an engagement ring, bought the engagement ring, and our plans were to kind of like stick around college, maybe get a job at the college, and then kind of work our way into our respective careers. And COVID hit. Literally our last semester, in March of our last semester at college, we both had to decide whether we were going to go to Australia or go to America. And we weren't even engaged at this point. What we did is I called my parents and she called her parents, and we just talked all through it. And we ended up deciding to come to North Carolina, where I'm from and where my family is. And we spent 2 years there. And it was great. It was an amazing, amazing time. I got to start out my career, and Grace got to be around my family. We got to spend time with my family a lot over those last 2 years. But something that started to kind of develop in those 2 years was obviously Grace missing her family. And it wasn't that we chose to like live away from them. It's that we were kind of forced to live away from them. So we had intended on me meeting her family before we got married and then having them at our wedding. None of that happened. We had to have our wedding in quarantine. And yeah, it just became really apparent over the last 2 years, especially the last year, that Grace wanted to be around her family as we were kind of deciding through that, as we were thinking through that. And it was right around then that an organization that Grace's parents work for actually wanted to open up a coffee shop, cafe in Sydney, literally in the inner west in Sydney. And so we talked to them about it, and we liked the idea, we liked the vision, we liked all that they wanted to do. We loved the organization and what they stood for. And so back, it must have been in a year and some change ago, we decided that we were going to come on to this organization, come to Australia and open up a coffee shop or cafe in Sydney. So that's the reason we moved here. The reason we moved here is to open up this coffee shop or this cafe, whichever one you call it, in Sydney, in the inner west. And so that's what we're doing. So I'm not a YouTuber, obviously. I don't have that many subs, but this is what I'm doing. Me and Grace are partnering and opening up a coffee shop under this organization in the inner west. And so I'm gonna maybe document some of that. I'm gonna bring you in on that journey. We've never done a business before. And so yeah, we're gonna bring you along in that journey. Before I end this video, go like, go comment. I'll see you next time. Thanks for stopping by.